Welcome to another episode of the Rugby League Outsiders, where we share the good, the great and the noteworthy of Rugby League outside the heartlands. My name's Craig.
And my name's Karl, and on this week's show we'll be talking about the opening round of Super League. We're going to dive into the French division, discuss that Salford game, Viva Las Vegas.
All right, so tackle one, Karl. We're just going to go straight into it. And we want to do like a little bit of a comparison, in our opinion, from the 2024 season to the 2025 season and that opening weekend. So there's been stories galore, some real mismatched scores that we could not predict, and some people out there saying, oh, yeah, I predicted this. I'm like, how? How did you predict this? So what was your take on this launch weekend?
Well, there's only one way to start at the opening weekend of Super League, innit? And it's, let's get ready to rumble. And I'm giving best by Michael Buffer, Craig.
Well, I'll try and do it without blowing people's ears out. Let's get ready to rumble. I've got to admit, though, like Sky nearly buggered that up, didn't they? Because like the graphic,
yeah, there were a clock on the a clock on the screen, weren't there? Just as it came on just in time, didn't it? Talking about Super League, yeah, opening round of Super League. Overall, it was pretty good. But Wigan and Leigh set the place alight, didn't they? The promotion that Wigan put into that opening round, I thought was incredible. Chris Radlinski should be running rugby league in this country, if you ask me.
And I think what I took from it was just the foresight, like knowing what's coming up. Like, we know in marketing that it runs best when you run a campaign, what I mean? And you can build momentum, you can get excitement going and all this kind of stuff. And very often people do stuff, and the RFL can be guilty of this, of like, it just happens by surprise. Take the England game in France last year. It's like, it just happens, there's no build up to it, you know what I mean? And that's not the best way to market anything. But you look at what Wigan's doing now, an amazing opening fixture, fireworks going off. It was just incredible. Great music. Outside, they had there's a chapel outside the ground, weren't they, promoting the Vegas occasion? Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So it's like already we're sowing seeds for that next big event for Wigan, and I think this is what Wigan have done very, very well under the helm of Chris Radlinski.
Yeah, and they had I don't know if you saw the Manchester United Wigan pre-game.
Yeah.
Don't know what you'd call it, a little promo one. I think that was actually Super League that organised that, to be fair. But yeah, that was great, and it all built up to this opening game of Super League, and it didn't disappoint on the pitch. I think if you're a Wigan fan, you might be a little bit disappointed. But Leigh came, spoilt the party. What an opening game it was.
They absolutely spoilt the party. And as the game went on, I thought, Wigan's going to kick on in a minute. You know what I mean? There's going to be like a flood of points, you know, and it's going to settle down to... I mean, I did say that, Wigan would win by no more than 10 points. You thought it was going to be a landslide. I was a little bit closer, but I did not predict that at all.
No, and Leigh got better as the game went on. And in that second half, it's like they turned their defence up a notch. Edwin Ipape, it was just belting people, wasn't it?
It's concrete.
We will dive more into that on our prediction show. But yeah, a great start to the Super League season with Leigh versus Wigan. And then there's some other absolute cracking games throughout the week.
Were you hinting at the Leeds game, are you?
Look, Wakefield, another team, came to spoil the party, didn't they? And did exactly that. It was just littered, wasn't it, with really close games. A thriller at Hull KR, another sort of sold-out stadium at Hull KR, went down to the wire. We had the golden point with the Wigan game. The Huddersfield game was very close. Huddersfield had a great first half, and some great crowds.
Yeah, they were. So we had a look at the average of the total number of spectators in that opening round in 2024 was 76,752. Doing a little bit of a digging, quick search on Google, and we come up with that figure. This year, slightly less, 75,574. But we've got to caveat that because there's a couple of things that we don't quite know.
Well, you've got the Hull FC were playing away. And they always have a great home crowd. They were at home the first game of last season, so Catalan were at home. So yeah, you got to look at which teams were home and away. But overall, great opening attendance, and a record was set at Wigan for the largest attendance.
Yeah, so that's the record amount, 21,748 Wigan fans.
And Leigh fans. Leigh fans.
No, I know, but there's a well, yeah. But all I'm saying is, like, it must have hurt.
21,748 people from the borough of Wigan is how you should say that.
No, well, I'm just thinking about all those Wigan fans that watched Leigh beat them for the first time ever in Super League. You know what I mean? It must have hurt. It must have hurt.
Yeah, we're in 1983 or something, the last time Leigh beat Wigan, yeah.
Yeah, so, massive crowd, 21,748. So slightly down, but I don't think we can read too much into that because Hull KR never really published true figures. Why that is, we don't know.
No.
As you said, Hull FC playing away, and they always have a massive following, one of the biggest well-supported clubs in the Super League. Had been in Perpignan, obviously there's going to be a lot of people that just can't get to that.
Warrington were away as well at Huddersfield, so yeah, I think overall it were the first weekend of Super League was a great success, apart from Salford, but we'll dive into that on another tackle.
If you can mark it out of 10, Karl, if you can give it like marks out of 10 on the Walker scale, opening round, what would you give it? This is a bit like the shirt review, isn't it?
I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah.
How could they have made that like a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10? It's a good question, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
None of the Salford debacle.
Yeah. That's what's it's overshone what a great start to the Super League it was. So yeah, if the Salford debacle didn't happen, you'd have been pushing for a 10 out of 10 opening round of Super League.
Yeah, for me, those things that could have been better is the Salford. We're going to talk about that later on in the Williams Weekly, but also I think I can see like a steady decline in the quality of coverage from the broadcasters, whether it's Sky, BBC. Now I don't want to slag them off too much, but there was like your graphics card on the screen, the sound dropped out on Sky Plus. People couldn't get on there.
Yeah, there was no scoreboard on the screen on the Leeds game. It's just basics, really, isn't it? It is basics for national broadcasters.
And then the commentators themselves. When we had this terrible countdown of like, oh, it's 6 hours since Wigan took. I can't remember. Someone scored against Wigan. It went on and on and on throughout the whole coverage, and I'm just like, listen, there's two teams in this game, not just Wigan. So and it boils my piss. It just seems to be when they're watching Wigan or Saints, it's like they're the only teams on the freaking pitch, on the telly.
I get that a little bit, but it was a great stat. And shout out to Ian Proctor. I think he was the man of the moment. If anyone wouldn't know who Ian Proctor is, he's like a stat man who works behind the scenes for like Sky and the national broadcasters. And he brought out the stat of how long it had been since we'd had a 0-0 draw in Super League or something like that during the live coverage, which I thought was great.
The last thing was the extra time debacle at the Wigan and Leigh match when they couldn't get the clock going, and I think Liam Moore got a load of slack for that. But I think for me, I took comfort in the fact that Liam Moore knew the rules inside out. He knew that this is what's supposed to happen. Yada yada yada. He stuck to his guns, and eventually, and people were going, "Oh, he's got to watch. Why can't we just crack on?" Well, there's a lot of problems with that. Like
yeah, the players need to know exactly when you're playing something like a golden point. Game, you need to know exactly how long's left on the clock. You need to know what sort of field position you need to be in for if there's 20, 30 seconds left. So, yeah, I completely understand why they held the game until they did, but eventually they just had to get on with it, didn't they?
Yeah, too big a pause. But other than that, great opening round and a great first tackle, Karl. So let's move on. Okay, before we go any further, I just want to say that if you get any value, if you're enjoying this at all, then please hit the subscribe button. We have a massive number of new subscribers last week, and it was great to see because it's the best way of letting us know that what we're turning out is quality and you're interested in listening to it. Right, let's move on. So, obviously, the way this show runs is you can tell, there's signs, there's signals, all right, that Karl is excited by the amount of effort he puts into a graphic. So here is the graphic for the next part of the show. Karl, Little Bird tells me you're a little bit excited about this one, judging by the the over exuberance you've put into that graphic.
Well, the graphic says Outsiders in Vegas. It's not technically true, is it?
No, it's not.
Outsider in Vegas. I don't know what's your role in this, Craig. Well,
my role is to sit back here in the bloody pissing rain and cold and take all the amazing reports from you. But to be honest, I'll do that graciously because it's a must-attend event. Right, and we had to get one of us there. You know what I mean? We drew straws. You drew the long straw, and you're heading out there, and you're probably the best person to go because I'll just go out there, like sit there like some grumpy old Englishman taking the piss out of everybody with a pint in my hand. But you'll get amongst it, and you'll find the stories, and you'll make new friends, do the networking. So you're the best person to be heading out there.
A week first live show, I'm pretty certain I'll have a cowboy hat on, stars and stripes shirt, a tattoo on my face. And I'll get amongst it. Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
I'm taking my boots as well, by the way.
What boots? Your rugby boots?
Yeah.
Really? Well, you're hoping for the game?
I'm going to turn up at Vegas 9 and just see what happens, mate.
Right.
If there's any American teams and they're a bit short of players and they just need somebody, an aging halfback, I'm your man.
With 2 broken wrists, then he's your man. Right, so lots of buzz. Lots and lots of buzz. Wigan game this week, we spoke about it already. Like, the chapel outside the stadium, you know what I mean? They're really, really hyping this up, and it's going to be an absolute belter. Now, we're going to be, when we're talking about like publishing updates and that kind of thing, we're going to be doing a set daily update from Vegas where you're going to go live at 1900, so that's 7 o'clock in the evening, every day that you're out there. So starting from the Friday, then into the Saturday, the Sunday before you fly back. Okay, so tune in for that. You're also going to do sort of ad hoc lives as and when you've got a story emerging, you meet someone, you know, you go to the Masters, the Touch, the Fan Zone, all this kind of stuff. So there's going to be loads. You want to be tuning into the channel the whole weekend that Vegas is going on because there's going to be lots of stuff kind of going on. Karl, in the run-up to it, like, what are you most excited about?
Being at the bloody stadium is what I'm most excited about, and watching. I've never got to watch an NRL game. It's like bucket list stuff for me, going to Australia, watching an NRL match. Get to watch 2 NRL matches. It feels like, I don't know, it feels like sort of a grand final moment, doesn't it? I'm looking forward to watching NRL, having English teams there, and just seeing the buzz around the stadium. I'm a huge NFL fan as well, so the fact that it's at the Raiders Stadium, I can't wait to go visit that because it's one of the most modern sports facilities there is. There's just a ton of stuff, mate. I'm just going to dive into it 100%.
So our general plan then is for all those people that wanted to be in Vegas and intrigued by this event but can't get there for whatever reason. There's a million reasons why people can't go. Money, family, work, all sorts of different commitments. We want to kind of give like a little bit of an insight into the experience, without it just being pissing up loads in the casino. The different aspects of Vegas that the likes of Sky, other journalists and all that kind of stuff might not show. We've always kind of tried to show that aspect of the game that other people don't. So
I'm going to get into the fan zones. I'm going to go to the Vegas Nines. I'm going to speak to some of the American teams that are out there. I want to sort of get the uncovered story. I want to get some American fans' perspective on the sport that's rocking up in Vegas. I want to see how much of a dent rugby league is actually making in Las Vegas because it's a city where there's bloody a lot going on, isn't there? So, I'm going to try and bring you as much sort of behind the scenes, backstage stuff as I possibly can. I mean, like I say, I'll dive into it full feet and see what I get.
Yeah, so that's the Vegas weekend. You've heard it here. We're going to be doing lots of work in the run up to that. Karl, before we sort of move on to the next tackle, you're going to meet up with a few people like friends of the show, the likes of Liam Duffy, our French correspondent, that we're going to speak to later on in the next tackle. What we'll do is just put out a bit of a shout there. If you're going to Vegas, please get in touch, especially if you've got a story to share, and we'll get you featured on the show and get your kind of take on stuff. Anything else before we move on, Karl?
No, just next week we are going to have a Vegas mega show we're planning. So we're going to dive into it with the Sniper, who's our NRL expert. We're going to dive into all the teams going to Vegas. We're going to do some predictions and every bit of info we can get. We're going to cram it into one show for next week.
So it's time to head out to our French correspondent, Liam Duffy, who's out there in the south of France. Now, I've had it on good authority that the weather has not quite warmed up out there like we expect in the south of France. Little bit like Catalan's performance this weekend. So we're going to be talking about that, and we're going to be talking about the Elite One results from this weekend as well. So welcome back, Liam.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Right, Liam. So we dive into this week's results then. Another win for Albi, top of the table. How are the results from this weekend gone?
Yeah, so we're in this period of the year in the south of France. You mentioned the weather before. 9 out of 10 of the fields are complete bogs. Honestly. So the games are getting a little bit slower. They're most of them are a little bit lower scoring. I say most. But they're just, some of them are real slogfest. There's games getting, not just in Elite One, but there's games getting abandoned delayed left, right and centre because of pitch terrain and stuff like that. So, there's been a few interesting results. Like you said, Albi kind of reinforced their lead at the top. I guess the two most surprising results were that Avignon beat Sant Esteve Catalan, so that's the Catalan Dragons reserve on the road. Yeah. Now, for whatever reason, there's not a lot of away victories in French Rugby League. I don't know if it's psychological. I don't know if it's because the away travel is a lot more grueling than in the UK, because obviously France is a lot bigger country. I don't know what the reason is, but away victories are not that common. So Avignon, who are down the bottom of the table, or I think second last, got one over Sant Esteve Catalan. So that one probably surprised outside onlookers. I don't think it's necessarily as much of a surprise as people might think, because I think Avignon, I think I mentioned the last time, there's all sorts of off-field turmoil. They kind of lost their head coach after 2 games, and it's just been, it's been very difficult circumstances there. But they've still, I think, got one of the most physically imposing teams in the competition. And, when you play rugby league, that's half the battle. If you're not physically in it, you can't be in any games whatsoever. So they're physically in every game that they play. Yeah. And even, the games against Albi and Sant Esteve and the teams up the top of the table, they're always putting in, a very solid 40, 50 minutes where they're leading, and then it's just towards the back end of the games that they're letting it slip away. So it's not necessarily an enormous surprise, but it probably would have raised a few eyebrows for people who, are not too familiar with the situation. But they also put in a massive shift against Carcassonne earlier in the year as well. But speaking of Carcassonne, the other result is Limoux with a 1 point victory over Carcassonne, again an away victory, so 22-23, bit of a local derby, Carcassonne and Limoux. So those are probably the two most interesting results of the weekend.
Albi top of the table, Carcassonne and Catalan, they're just behind them, aren't they, with a game in hand? Are they due to play each other anytime soon?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'd imagine there will be one game left between the two of them at some point. But yeah, it's interesting. I think Albi and Carcassonne are just hugely physically imposing teams. I think I mentioned last time we discussed this, the comps. It's a physically tough comp. So those two are like I said, physically imposing. They're aggressive. But then you've got Sant Esteve, who obviously, I think their tagline is they're the Dragons du Demain, the Dragons of tomorrow. So they're much more of a building for the future project. Yeah. So they've got a bit of a younger team, a little bit of a probably sacrificing a few kilos, to put it one way, compared to some of the other teams. Yeah. But this season they've just been much higher in quality than in previous seasons. Really well coached with Justin Murphy and Remy Casti, a couple of old Catalan Dragons players. So. Sorry, I don't mean old if they're listening to this, but I mean old as in a few years ago. But yeah, they're obviously doing a really good job in getting them kind of compensating for that lack of kilos, but just making up for it in quality. So yeah, it's an interesting matchup.
So obviously, looking at the table now, Albi just starting to creep away. Put you on the spot a little bit. Do you expect it to pretty much stay like that for the rest of the season, with Carcassonne and Sant Esteve Dragons sort of fighting it out a little bit, Limoux as well? Or do you think there's going to be an upset later in the season?
There'll undoubtedly be upsets. I will say that from what I've seen every team play now. I will say that Albi, Carcassonne, and Sant Esteve do seem a little ahead of the pack, even compared to Limoux and Lesignan, and Pia. Actually, Pia are probably worth a mention. in there as well. Got some Super League quality players like Hakim Maludi, Albi. I mean, Albi, like I said, they get rolling forward from a big kind of imposing pack, but they've also got Tony Gigo, who looks, he could be playing in a dinner suit. Like, he's just able to just put kicks wherever he wants them. There isn't another kicker in the competition with the quality that he has. So it's just such a massive advantage on the other team.
And they'll just go down to the bottom end of the table, a team that UK fans will be very familiar with. Toulouse's sort of B team, they're bottom of the table, aren't they?
That's right, yeah. I think they're also a very young team. When I saw them play, they're very young. They're physically a little bit behind some of the other teams. So I think that's just, they're just struggling with the physicality of the comp, really. I don't really know what the story is in terms of, if the idea is the same kind of setup as the Catalan Dragons reserve or not. I'm not really sure. I imagine it is, but obviously the budget is not going to be the same as the Catalan Dragons. But yeah, I think they're just physically quite, I mean this with the greatest of respects, but I think physically they're quite far behind some of the other teams. Younger players playing against guys who have, late 20s, 30s, and even up to like approaching 40 who have been around the block a few times. So I think that's where they're just behind.
Brilliant. Praise of all of that, Liam. So just if we can just switch fire now to Catalan, that Catalan game against Hull FC, a result that I don't think anyone foresaw, really. I like the idea that Hull FC are back perhaps into winning ways and have picked up a win. But a complete shocker from Catalan, who look to recruit really well in the off-season.
Yeah, that's right. There's been a lot of anticipation, like among French fans, about some of the signings that they've made off-season. Obviously, Luke Keary's probably the most headline-grabbing one, kind of pulling him out of retirement. I mean, they would have had Sam Tompkins, but am I right in thinking he tore his hamstring in the Challenge Cup? Is that right?
Yeah.
So he's going to be gone for a while. And, just having that, he's obviously not scoring 5 tries in a match like he was on his first season at Wigan, but I think his leadership is going to be something that they'll miss, obviously. I agree with you about Hull FC. I think that already looked like a completely different outfit. I don't think Hull FC comes close to winning that game last season. It's obviously just a much more resilient, a much more aggressive group as well. So obviously something's gone right there. Catalan, like, on the one hand, I think it was still like a decent quality game, I thought. But they just, for whatever reason, some of the big signings didn't show up and they just didn't manage to score many points. I think the real danger here is if, like, they've kind of been in a bit of a rebuild for a couple of seasons now, and they're kind of victims of their own success a little bit. I know they didn't win the Super League, but obviously they went to back-to-back grand finals, and I think the French fans now are expecting to be in that fight every season. And you just see, like, if you look on some of the social media comments, any kind of lackluster performance, and they are like people are really going for, new signings, going for the coach and stuff like that. So, I just fear kind of how much temperatures are liable to raise if they don't start if they don't start stringing together quite a few W's, to be honest, and they're not in that fight right at the top of the table. I don't know if the fans are going to tolerate that.
Yeah, interesting. I think Steve McNamara is potentially going to be the first coach under fire in Super League this year.
Look, it's just the pressure.
I know it's
from the
only
fans.
it's one game, isn't it? I see, it's too easy to swear.
It is one game, but it's like you said, it is true that the fans are already, kind of throwing their toys out the pram a little bit, just judging by social media comments, which I know is not like the real world, but it's just a trend that you notice. There is an expectation now that the Dragons are like right in the top table, and obviously, Steve McNamara doesn't deserve to be like in the crosshairs of fans because he's taken this team from struggling to being like alongside Wigan, St Helens, and those sort of teams. So, but you can't expect, when you've signed that many new players, you can't expect it to click into place immediately. So, yeah, they are still in a bit of a transitional phase, I think. But on the other hand, so are Hull FC, and they managed to make it work. So, they do need to make it work sooner rather than later.
What's going on in my mind there is, like, our conversation was, these big players didn't perform very well, and then it's like, is Steve McNamara under scrutiny? You know what I mean? It's like, it was the players. I know they're responsible for getting them fired up and, the pre-match arousal and all that kind of stuff, but It just seems a bit crap, but definitely something to watch out for. Liam, if we just move on, so you've got a little, like my good friend Karl here, you've got a little trip coming up to the States as well in the next couple of weeks. How excited are you for that?
I am buzzing. It's been a very busy few weeks here, and I'm just looking forward to just doing nothing except for absorbing rugby league, which will be fantastic news for my missus, who couldn't care less about rugby league, but she's followed me over to Las Vegas to watch it again. So for 2 years running, I promised her we're going to go every year if we can afford it. So really looking forward to it. It was awesome last year. Like anyone who's listening who's like umming and ahhing about going, if it's possible to book it last minute, do it. If not, definitely go in the future, because it's a great experience. And last year, I honestly think there was probably 2,000 to 3,000 Brits there already.
Yeah.
Like Super League fans and stuff like that. So, I expect that to double easily. I don't know. Have they released any info about the number of ticket sales from the UK?
It were 5,000 last time I heard, but that was
it?
That was ages ago. So I imagine it's way higher now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Liam,
and that's probably like an official count as well, right? Like there's probably quite a few people who've bought tickets but don't count in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So just sort of quickly off the top of your head, what's your tips for anyone that's going out there for the first time? You know what I mean? And in terms of like food, eating, places to go, things to see, chapels to get married in, and that kind of thing.
The less said about the chapels to get married in, the better. But we, that is an option. That is an option that you can do. Some people I know have done it apparently. I think just look. I can't lie to you. The prices of stuff is insane. But it's an entertainment city. Just don't go there and complain about the price of the beer. That's what you signed up for. That's what you're going for.
Yeah.
I just think, look, there's just so much to do. I think, I went to Vegas maybe like a decade ago, and I didn't have much money. I was on a bit of a backpacking trip, and it was towards the end of the trip. I didn't have much money, and Vegas kind of struck me as a bit of like, oh, you could see how this place was like super popular and fancy in like the 60s or 70s, right? But it was, it was a little bit rusty. It was, the paint was peeling in a few different places and stuff like that. But since then, there's just been this enormous like investment, especially in sport, in the city. So look, there's like the UFC has its performance institute there. All the UFC events are there. There's obviously and now there's an NFL team. There's tennis. There's Formula One. Like Formula One, is that right?
Yeah.
Or at least they were going.
Yeah.
They were going for Formula One. There's the Sphere. Like it just feels like. It doesn't feel like how it felt a decade ago. Like it feels like a new place with lots of...
Yeah, WrestleMania's there. WrestleMania's there after the NRL Vegas game, isn't it?
Well, there you go. Like it's getting all of these like headline events, and it's just it just feels like an awesome place to be. What I will say is like there is, if anyone who's staying in Resorts World, which is where a lot of the NRL stuff is based, there is like a little kind of hole-in-the-wall taco shop right behind Resorts World that doesn't look like anything at all, but you will probably have the best tacos of your entire life there. So that's my number one tip.
Brilliant.
Right. Rugby League Outsiders food rating incoming.
I've got plenty more. Invite me back for a whole other episode. We'll do that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So let's wrap it up there, Liam. Thanks again for your input on French Rugby League. We love to hear the kind of stories and what's going on over there. And I wish you sort of the safe travels in your run to Vegas, and hopefully you two will meet up and have a beer and a face to face.
Like I said, hopefully you can reap the rewards of the radiator in the studio. So yeah, we'll be enjoying Vegas. We'll be sitting by the pool.
Yeah.
Right, time to check in with our friendly NRL tipster, the Sniper. Now, talking about Vegas, the story goes that at the Bellagio 1 year, somebody got locked in the safe down there. Right? Yeah, absolutely, terrible, terrible situation. Now, there's only one person they thought they could bring in to crack the code and to get them out, and that was the Sniper.
What have you got from us from the Sniper's view of the world of rugby league then?
Speaking about views, is Vegas now on? Is that confirmed?
Vegas is very much on.
Right, let me have the camera here. Right, so
here we go.
100% it is on. Right, we've already had an argument this morning because we've got one radiator in this studio, right? And the only thing, like Karl's jetting off to be poolside in Vegas, living the life. And all he could say to me was, at least you get the radiator all week for yourself. Which I think is disgusting.
That's cool. Well, I've got an idea, Craig. How about we sponsor a live cam, like a GoPro, that Karl has to wear? It's buy Karl a beer cam, yeah? And we get to log in and watch live whatever he's doing. I don't know if we pay a $5 or something to buy Karl a beer. It'll be like Big Brother on steroids. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it will. we can get those Ray-Ban.
Ray-Ban glasses. That'd be better.
Those glasses where you get the point of view. This would be brilliant.
Yeah, that way the missus can keep an eye on you as well, Karl.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so anything obviously can happen in Vegas, and actually there was a few events in Rugby League this weekend that few people would have predicted, including a 0-0.
How good was that game? What an opening game. I really enjoyed it. Lots of people in Australia were saying that it wasn't actually good and it was a bludger. I thought it was super tactical, like a game of chess, enjoyable viewing, and a lot better than higher scoring games I've seen. So I thought it was a great opening, a historic night, if you will. So
I think it was very much like an NRL game, to be honest with you. It's you get much closer NRL games, don't you, than Super League tends to be a little bit more open and higher scoring than NRL games.
Yeah, I think it was more like a finals game. So that's what made it so good and so interesting. Nobody was backing down. Local derby, stadium packed to the rafters. Music was blasting. I think they had Faithless Insomnia on. Yeah. Everyone was up for it. And some of our members were in the crowd. So they're sending, videos through to the Discord groups that we have saying how exciting. And a lot of them are Leigh fans. So, there was lots of fun action. The bets came in for that game as well. So we really, really enjoyed it. So I thought it was great. Something completely different. It hasn't happened, was it since 1993?
1983. Oh.
I think that was... Was it 1983?
No, it could have been 93, with the 0-0 draw. I think you're right.
So we're looking at, I don't know, what odds is that? 10,000 to 1? Maybe more?
Wow.
If anyone would even lay it. So, you could tell it was going to be, tight. But to come up with 0-0, you'd have to be a fortune teller. So that really enjoyed that game. Then a couple of days later, was it the following day? We had Hull KR. Following day. And then, would you believe it? It was another draw at full time. It went to Golden Point. Yeah, Castleford came out like a house on fire. They looked really, really good and up for it. Hull KR were making mistakes and looked a little bit lethargic. I thought the ref was a bit harsh against Hull KR. I thought Cass were getting the decisions, but credit to them first half. Then Hull KR started to turn it on a bit more second half, and then Reece Martin couldn't kick for love nor money. What did you make of that?
We were singing his praises last week, saying that he's worth 6 to 8 points on his own in that team. But I think it cost him 6 to 8 points in that game. And I think if he'd nailed all those conversions, it would have been a very, very different story. They won quite comfortably, but he didn't. They were all over the place, and I don't think the weather was particularly bad. I don't know what it was. Maybe it just got into his head, like it does sometimes. You got that demon that and you miss everything, you can't kick anything, and it was just weird to see. And possibly he could be a hero for Hull KR. He really, really could. This could completely change the rest of his season.
Well, it was great the week before. It was an odd one, wasn't it?
So he's an elite kicker. He's from PNG. He's used to kicking in blustery conditions, rain, humidity, everything. He's got a great, I think he's 80% plus normally.
Yeah.
And he just had a complete mare. So, the other thing towards the end is you saw Hiku score a really, really good try.
Great try, yeah.
5 minutes later, ball comes up, great crossfield kick. Hiku's ball watching. Sini jumps over him and scores a great, great try. But he's ball watching.
Yeah.
So all credit to Sini for grabbing that, because it was a very difficult catch and put down. But Hiku switched off as well.
Sniper.
He was known for switching off in the NRL as well.
Sniper, just want to quickly talk about Castleford Tigers. We spoke about them in the off-season. We spoke about them last week, actually, because they were pretty dreadful last week. The NRL signings that they made really came to the forefront this weekend. I thought Sini was great. Assi was great. What did you make of them?
I was particularly impressed with Afi managing the game. I thought his kicking made all the difference. And week in, week out, we've seen Judah Rimbu, 2-3 times now?
Yeah.
He's been sniping. And you can see he's about to score any time now. So when they play a team that's a little bit scattered in defence, he's going for it. I'd imagine he's going to score in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So I'd keep an eye on him for sure.
Is that the sniper's hot tip for this week then?
No, I can't put it up now.
Oh.
No. It's a watching brief for now. So you guys are aware of it. It's something to keep in the notebook.
Right.
And it will be soon. You can just tell. This guy's an absolute weapon. No one's going to stop him. So, yeah, I thought Castleford were really good, especially first half. They obviously reset the attitude problem they had when they came out at Bradford.
Yeah.
And they looked like a unit, and there was cohesion, and there was understanding, and you can tell they knew what Afi was going to do. And Afi didn't go missing at all. But I thought it was more a case of great effort, grit and determination by Castleford, but a choke by Reece Martin. Mikey Lewis, I mean, come on, Mikey. You're the man of steel last year. Why are you dropping the ball in those situations? Why are you losing the ball close to the goal line when it should be an easy pickup? Why are you putting your team under pressure? So I wasn't that impressed with Mikey. So I thought they should have been away and gone, personally. Mid to late second half. Shouldn't have been a 10-point buffer. Should have never come to Hiku being allowed to switch off. But hats off to Castleford. Hats off to the podcast that we did, because a lot of the team, the players that we spoke about on that scouting report, really stood up this week, which is great to see. Long may it continue.
Yeah, I saw a post on social media, and it was. He said, "Does anyone know if Danny Maguire stopped clapping yet?" It was just like he was just cheering everything. You know what I mean? You could just see how much he was living
the
that.
game, didn't
yeah,
100%. Yeah. Right, Sniper. Let's go on to St Helens. Tristan Saylor. You called it in the off season. The guy looks absolute dynamite.
He was brilliant. 4 tries.
Yeah.
Pins the ears back. Turns on the afterburners for the first try. He looks really, really elite. Could he be a Smoky for the Man of Steel?
Well, you called it this morning.
I said to Craig this morning, I said I wouldn't be surprised if he... I know he was playing a bunch of kids, essentially, and we're going to dive onto that in another tackle. But, he looked so fast. It looked like it was man against boys, which is what it was, really. Yeah,
he has got a selfish streak about him as well, which is good. He will go, because he knows he's going to be able to burn pretty much anyone.
Yeah.
So I think he could be. I mean, the issue remains, have St Helens been tested? No. What's going to happen this weekend? Is that going to be their first real test? Probably. It was like a training ground exercise against, I don't know, a pub team almost at the weekend, which was a shame for the league, but great for showcasing your talent. The only issue is now, when we do put Tristan Saylor up as a selection, the bookies and their grandmothers will know about him. Yeah. We're going to get worse odds, So, there's pros and cons, but he was seriously impressive. And that right edge of Saints looks potentially lethal. So you've got Saylor, you had Robertson next to him, and you had Felt on the wing.
Yeah, he scored as well, didn't
he? Yeah, the weird thing is, Saylor's run first attitude, run first mentality. Robertson was looking after himself as well. Is Felt going to get less ball than anticipated? Could he actually be a bad bet to be top try scorer? Mm. That's the view that we got over the course of this weekend. But we'll have to see whether it ends up being offloading ends up being an issue, and whether those guys give him the try assist or go themselves. My instinct from having seen them both play in the past is they'll probably go themselves. So I'd probably downgrade Felt tries by 25% to 30% for the season after having seen that set up.
Yeah, that's going to take quite a bit of intervention from the coach to get that delivery. If habitually they're self.
Yeah, they are, and they're going to be scoring week in, week out. So logically, Kyle Felt was even money at a certain bookie to score a hat trick against Salford. That's insane. How can he be even money?
Yeah, it's almost
makes no sense. So they're saying he's going to score 3, 4, or 5 tries. Yeah. He's the one that's come up with just one on the elite gun right-hand edge of Saints. So what's going there? I was impressed with Morgan Knowles and Sirenen as well in that game. But, Saylor's going to be front page news for the moment.
Yeah, and just a little side story, like following on from that, going a little bit deeper. It's good to see what is like the son of a former rugby league legend, sort of doing incredibly well, because there are some that's like undersold themselves. You know, you look at Sinfield's yet to sort of flourish, isn't he? You know, and there's been a few like that have not quite made the impact that you'd expect from coming from that stock, if you like.
I think he gets it, you know. So he's obviously had long chats with his dad. If you watch the post-game interview, he talks about Castleford this week and how excited he is about playing at the Jungle, and it's got an old school feel about it, and he's looking forward to experiencing that. So he's come to Super League. He's come and embraced it. He hasn't said, actually, I've left the NRL. Now, he knows what he's talking about. He's got a rugby league brain, and it's good to be able to see him do his stuff on the field rather than sit on the fringes at the Brisbane Broncos, where he wasn't really getting a look in because Reece Walsh is ahead of him. So good luck to him. I hope he does really well. And he was, he spoke really impressively in that interview as well. So potentially, we've been quite negative on Saints.
Yeah.
I know they're playing the kids, but, it sort of perked all of our ears and eyes up a little bit. Curious to see what happens this weekend, because are they still mentally a bit soft? That's the feeling I got last season.
Just a couple of questions on the Saints there. We're going to talk about Lewis Dodd in a minute, who's obviously made that transition out to Australia. But before that, do you think Felt will stand for that? If he's not getting the ball, do you think he's going to be happy to sort of sit put, take his salary, and not do a great deal of work, or is he someone that's more than likely going to be chasing a move to a different team? I know it's early doors. I know we're round one and we don't really know, but if you could stake your claim on it, what would you say about that?
He's not really that kind of character.
Right.
So he's genuinely one of the nicest people in rugby league. So he'll take these kids under his wing, Saylor and Robertson, and he'll try and guide them, and he'll try and help the outside backs. If he ends up getting less ball and they're flourishing and the team does better as a whole, I don't think he's going to complain about that, because he's anything but a prima donna.
Yeah.
So again, that would be the reason for saying maybe he scores 25% or 30% fewer tries, because he's helped the team gel and become a more cohesive unit. So no, he's not going to put his hand up and whinge about it.
A little bit of a new section this week. So we've got the Ashes coming up this year, England v Australia, which we can't wait. But we need a little bit of an insight onto the English players that are in the NRL. So Sniper, you're going to be taking on this role for us. And first look, we're going to look at Lewis Dodd. How's he started getting on in pre-season?
He had a really difficult game for the Rabbitohs against Manly at the weekend. Let's take a quick look at his stats. So he made 10 tackles. He had 0 try assists. He only made 19 meters. Oof. He had -1 post-contact meters, 0 line breaks, and 0 tackle busts. So I think he's going to struggle to get the halfback role at the Rabbitohs. And I can't see him lasting in the NRL. So I don't know if you guys have heard anything. Maybe he hasn't settled. Any ideas on what's been going on there?
No, I've no idea what's going on, but I'm not surprised. I mean, when they announced his move to the Rabbit, I was like, well, I don't really get that. I don't know if he's met his potential. He's got more growth to do, or whether he's hit his level. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm not surprised by those stats.
I know the Rabbitohs have been giving him a lot of sort of PR on social media and stuff like on their YouTube channel. They've been doing a lot of like video work with him and stuff like that. So they're certainly giving him a big profile. Whether or not he hits the straps in Australia remains to be seen, I suppose.
Yeah. So I mean, he should be under Cody Walker's wing. It doesn't seem like he is. And then the next new gun halfback has been bought from Manly. I think his name is Jamie Humphreys. I'm not sure about his first name. His surname is definitely Humphreys. And there are very, very big raps on him. He looks like he could be the real deal. And I imagine that Wayne Bennett will be nurturing him ahead of Lewis Dodd. So it's a shame. I wouldn't be surprised to see him back in Super League early, for sure. Not on our radar, not in the black book. Yeah, I think the writing's on the wall with Lewis.
Right, shall we move on to Canberra Raiders then? Matty Nicholson and Smithies then at Canberra. How have they been getting on in the pre-season games?
Most Super League fans' favourite NRL club, I guess, because there's been so much English talent go there.
Yeah, and they've got the best
Nicholson, well, that's debatable, isn't it? What, the green...
The green machine?
Vomit green.
Nah, the green machine.
Vomit green.
Looks great.
Okay.
Coming up on our NRL shirt reviews video, that will be actually. So, you watch out for that.
Oh, dear. Okay. I think I'll skip that episode, but never mind. Matty Nicholson, he's got Elliot Whitehead's old spot in the right second row. He played against the Sharks the weekend just past. He was pretty average. Didn't really have a chance to score. If we have a look at his stats, he made 48 metres, he made 20 tackles, and he had 6 runs for 18 post-contact metres. So it was an average performance. But if you look at in the previous week, they played against the Panthers, and they played against the Panthers reserve. He was really good in that game. 75 metres, 32 post-contact, 32 tackles, 0 misses, 0 errors. So he looked really good in his first game. Now, he scored a lot in Super League. Do you think he's going to be able to score as many tries as that in the NRL?
It's a good question. I don't think so. I mean, when Nicholson did this move, he went to Warrington, didn't he? And it was just like he wasn't really a standout player for me. He did really well at Warrington and
all right.
Performed well, but he never set the world alight, which leads me to believe that going to the NRL, I can't see him massively improving over the space, of this season. So no, I don't think he's going to score as many tries.
So you think he's more of a steady Eddie rather than,
Yeah, 100%. And yeah. I did question whether he had the size, whether he had the size to compete. He's not a direct replacement for Elliot Whitehead. He's not in the same league.
No.
Elliot Whitehead of old. So, but yeah, that's my take.
I'm quite impressed with him. But, again, there was big raps on the next player we're going to speak about. Let's just rewind a touch. Actually, we're going to speak about Morgan Smithies.
Yeah.
Because, again, he had a so-so season. The weird stat is that he's Canberra's most effective tackler.
Yeah.
So if you look at his stats for last season, they were really good for Canberra. But he did cause 9 line breaks and he made 11 errors. So if you're looking at it visually, in terms of the eye test, he's failed the eye test. Statistically, he's pretty much an average defender. So, yeah, Smithies, again, he hasn't scored a try. Lewis Dodd hasn't scored a try. And you want one of these English players to really smash it in the NRL and to become one of those elite players that's competing for, honours at his club and honours at the end of the season. And we haven't really seen that for a few years, which is a massive shame. So maybe it'll be worth talking about who that player could be at some point. An actual English player rather than the Aussie doing so well in the Super League, which is, singing the same song every year. If we move on to Newcastle.
Yeah. Kai Pearce-Paul, he's not settled from what I've heard in the Australian press. Is he potentially going out to market?
Yeah. Did you watch any of him playing for Newcastle last season?
Bits. Highlights, mate. Highlights, but not full matches.
Yeah, because at the beginning of the season, he was sort of predicted to be the best English player to have come to the NRL for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And every week, the media and the pundits were saying, keep an eye on him. He's really good aerially. He's going to score. And he was putting in 4 or 5 out of 10 performances. And I don't think it was his fault. So when you're watching them play, you could tell the cohesion wasn't there at all. The understanding with Ponga was non-existent. He was running decoy lines, game in, game out. And it just looked like O'Brien, who's the coach at Newcastle, has bought him, but didn't really know how to fit him into his plans. It was a 4 or 5 out of 10 season, which is disappointing. So there was massive hype, hasn't lived up to it. Again, if I were him, I'd probably be on the plane back because the Knights didn't look great. At the weekend, they looked like one of the poorest teams. So I wouldn't want to be sitting there potentially not playing every week and just in the extended squad. So I'd cut my losses, come back. If a move hasn't worked out, why waste another year of your career just in Newcastle making up the numbers?
I've heard Blackpool Beach is better than Bondi anyway.
Is there another side, NRL side, that he could potentially slot into?
I don't think he's impressed enough.
No.
The issue now is the depth that you've got in most squads is so deep that unless you impress in your first season, it's really hard to move to another club. You're just not going to.
Yeah,
so if you look at the depth at a club like the Sharks, they could field 2 first-grade teams every week. So could the Panthers. So could all the top clubs. So no, I don't think so.
No, I was just trying to work out how much is it him not being utilised correctly, and how much it's him not performing well enough. You know what I mean?
I think it's the former. He's not been utilised properly. They don't know how to use him properly. You can see the skills are there, but he just looks like a rabbit in the headlights, and he's not getting any ball, and he's coming across as ineffective when he wasn't ineffective when he was playing at Wigan. Anything but. Yeah,
let's switch fire now and just have a look at this the general sort of scope of the results this weekend. So we had these like run of draws. I mean, that's a draw. It's a bit like marketing, I suppose. We love yeses. We understand no's and we like no's because it's a decision, but we don't like maybes. And a draw is very much a maybe, isn't it? And, we've had a run of them this weekend. Can you expect more of these, do you think?
It's very hard to say. I love a draw, but they're so hard to predict. So I've got an angle for this section of the show, which is pretty much the betting angle. Yeah. So we had 2 draws in the Super League. We had another 2 draws in NRL preseason. That's 4 draws in the space of a week. That is unheard of. That never, ever, ever happens. But they tend to come in batches, if you like. So a friend of the show used to pretty much do one thing when he was betting on Super League. He'd say, anytime I see the match handicap at under 1 converted try, so we're talking 6 points or less, I'd back the draw. And he said, I used to collect loads. So obviously you might go through a dry spell of not cashing for 15 or 20 weeks. But when you do cash, you're going to be getting 25 to 1 every single time. So he's pretty adamant that he did profit on that. So, yeah, that's something worth considering. The other thing is if you get a combination of bad weather and a match handicap of 6 points or less, then that's pretty much a double bubble, and that's definitely worth considering. But if you do want to test that out, try and take the early odds on a Tuesday. Don't wait till the weekend because they'll have been crunched in by then. And you might only get 16 to 1 or 14 to 1, what was a 25 to 1 shot or 33 to 1 shot earlier in the week. So, yeah. And the other thing is, that's the bookie's favourite result, a draw. Because it means that, all the other match results, they've won and they haven't had to pay out. So the ideal result, if you're a conspiracy theorist and believe the refs are fixing things, obviously they're not. Or if you believe, draws are starting to happen more regularly. So it's worth monitoring and seeing what the state of play is. Weirdly, people tend to bet on draws in finals, and they don't happen as often in finals.
So they just can't. Yeah.
So it's a little bit counter.
Perhaps the odds just sway their decision there. Where they look at the odds and go, do you know what? I can't call this, but it's got to be worth a tenner on a draw or whatever.
Yeah, and it does tend to happen early in the season quite a lot. So now's pretty much the time. But we've just had 4 in a week. Are we going to get more this week? Not entirely sure.
Ooh, yeah. Well,
something to keep an eye on. But the other one that I did think about in terms of a selection for the viewers potentially might be Robertson again to score on the Saints' right-hand edge.
Right.
So Saints are playing. Who are Saints playing again this weekend? It's in the notes. I checked them. Do you remember who they're playing?
They're playing Castleford this week.
Yeah, Castleford have a slightly weak left edge. So that Harry Robertson could be a decent shout. Now, we haven't put it up ourselves because we're not entirely sure about it, but he looks like he's running and he could be a shout. I'd imagine he'd be about 5 to 2, 2 to 1, that sort of price.
I'm wondering if we do get more and more draws, if this is a trend that continues, what happens to the golden point? whether that's something that we keep or we have to change because each game is potentially running an hour later than it's scheduled to.
There's a Williams Weekly right there, mate.
Yeah.
No, I think it's great.
Oh, I love
and the
it.
other good thing is a draw. The draw creates drama, and that improves viewing figures for everyone. So they do actually. If I were the NRL or the Super League, I'd want to create more drama and more fanfare by the draws actually happening, because it's like the Hail Mary NFL play at the end.
Yeah.
Viewers love that. So could there be a draw in Vegas? I'm expecting one soon. Will it be this year? Maybe. Ooh. They want that Hail Mary NFL play. You heard it here first.
Sniper, it's been great to have you on again. Is there anything we missed, or I think we got it all, haven't we?
No. Let's get this sponsor Carla beer can going, guys. Come on.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
Right, cheers, mate.
Okay, going to move on to Tackle 5 and the Challenge Cup. We've been keeping up with the Challenge Cup all the way since the start of this season, and I've got to say that the Bulls have had a hell of a draw in the round 4 of the Challenge Cup.
Well, you don't know what Salford team they're going to be playing. That's the trouble, because
this is my point. It's like if you were to pick a team out of all those, all right, you'd be like potentially Featherstone. Right. Other than that, you'd be like, well, Salford, absolute array on the pitch. So it's got to be the best draw for Bradford.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great fixtures there. I mean, Oldham absolutely smashed York this weekend, so they've drawn Hull KR. I mean, Hull KR didn't quite fire, so that's potentially an interesting matchup. Bradford, Salford, I suppose, if you're looking at an underdog, I suppose that's the one you may see. An underdog take a win. Like I say, we don't know what sort of Salford team we're going to get, because these fixtures aren't until the middle of March, so they've got enough time to get the shit sorted out, I suppose. Yeah. Going through the fixtures then, Widnes v Warrington. So I know that the Widnes fans will be loving this one. Big local derby for them. They haven't played in a competitive fixture for quite some time. So I know our friend of the show, Mark Austin, will be absolutely buzzing for that one. It's at Widnes as well. So great fixture there. Salford v Bradford, as we've already mentioned. And then I suppose the tie of the round, St Helens versus Leeds Rhinos. They come out every year in the Challenge Cup. It's happened again. Craig, what are your thoughts for this one?
This is a tough one. I'd like to reserve my actual decision to later in the show, because Leeds are putting a terrible display at the weekend, and Saints a little bit of a strange one against Salford, with the debacle that's going on there, which, by the way, we're going to talk about in the Williams Weekly in the next tackle. So I don't really know how to call that. But it's definitely the game that we kind of got to keep an eye on for this weekend. Yeah,
so then you got Hull KR v Oldham, as I've mentioned. Leigh Leopards against Batley Bulldogs. You would expect Leigh to get that over the line. Catalan v Featherstone. Potential slippery banana skin for Catalan. We don't, like say, at this moment in time, we don't know what we're going to get from Catalan this year. We expected them to be flying. Hasn't really kicked off that way. Struggled against Halifax, didn't they? They are at home. You would expect them to win. Huddersfield v Wakefield. A very interesting tie. If Wakefield's start to the season's anything to go by, they're flying. Huddersfield were much improved on last season and their opening round, so another great tie. And then you got Wigan v Hull FC at Wigan. So yeah, some great fixtures in the 4th round of the Challenge Cup, and I'm very much looking forward to getting down and watching some of them.
Yeah, so which of those fixtures is the standout one for you? Which one are you going to pay the most interest in? It'd be interesting if Hull beat Wigan. That would be,
of course it would be.
If it was that, because sometimes you get those teams that just do really well in the cup and then just tip one of these favourites.
Interestingly, I put these fixtures out on our social platform on YouTube earlier, and we actually had a Hull FC fan comment and say, do you know what, do you think we should just be playing our reserves and our kids in that fixture and just concentrate on the league this year?
Well, that's interesting based on the Salford story that's going on at the minute, because, I'm under the impression that teams are encouraged, if not required, to play the strongest team they can. There's certainly a lot of eyebrows raised when people do that, and it's almost, it's not in the spirit of the game, almost, is it? But then I get it. I completely get it. They're going to say, look, I'll roll over for a little tummy tickle, and and sort of play it down. So interesting that it's come from a Hull a Hull fan.
Yeah.
Perhaps they just understand where they are right now and the improvements they've got to make.
Very logical.
Okay, moving on then swiftly to the Williams Willie Clue. We've commented on this a couple of times already, and that's the situation that's going on at Salford. Now, you know, lots of people talking about the situation, how it came about, Paul Rowley's playing it, what role the RFL have done. The angle I want to come from at this is where do the ripples from this situation stop? Because this could have wide-ranging consequences, which Sam Burgess commented on, you know, and remarked about this weekend later on in the season.
This could have cost the sport hundreds of thousands of pounds. And genuinely, there could have been sponsors looking at that game, potential sponsors of our sport, watching that game on BBC, on primetime BBC, with a national television audience, could have been looking to invest in our sport and sponsor the sport. And then they got delivered that. It was embarrassing on so many levels. It was embarrassing on so many levels.
That's not what I expected you to say. I thought you were going to say, well, yeah, you know, Saints have been handed basically 80 points. No. And the points difference is massive, but you're thinking even further than that.
Yeah, as a rugby league fan, I was genuinely embarrassed by what got served up on national television. Now, we've been crying out for it, haven't we? We need more exposure on the game. We need more exposure. And we get it. We're on national TV, and we serve up an absolute embarrassment to the sport. And it should have been sorted out. Whose fault it is? We could go on about that for forever, couldn't we? Paul Rowley's interview was very interesting. Answered like a politician, which I wasn't too pleased with. Silence from the RFL. But yeah, it's just somebody's accountable for that what happened at the weekend. I know each side's going to blame each other, but yeah, just when you're talking about the ripples that this could have for the sport, it could be massive. It made the sport look, it made us look tin pot, didn't it?
Yeah, and it definitely threw the cat amongst the pigeons because there's lots of infighting. You know what I mean? People backed Salford and Paul Rowley's stance on it. Other people backed, the RFL and all that kind of thing, and pitched Paul Rowley as the villain. And I don't think that's particularly helping anything.
Do you know what? Do you know the part that I took away from this? There was during Paul Rowley's interview, on BBC with Tanya Arnold. He didn't really want to speak about it, but Tanya Arnold kind of got it out of him. And there was a bit that he said in this interview, and it really me has perked up. It was like he said, "Yeah, well, there was phone calls backwards and forwards at the last minute, and if we'd have done it differently, maybe we'd have all sat around a table and discussed it." And I was like, what? They haven't sat around a table and discussed it? I'm like, what on earth is going on here? It's like, surely it was like, I was like, I wonder where they are geographically. Salford and the RFL headquarters in Manchester. I mean, they're literally miles away from each other. They should have been sat around a table and going, right, it doesn't matter.
A crisis meeting.
Yeah, we need a team on this pitch, a strong side on this pitch, so that we don't embarrass the sport. And how that never happened is beggars belief. Yeah,
I mean, you've just,
I know I've gone down a different route there, but I feel passionate about it because it really angered me. It really, really angered me. And the view I always take on things like this is when my wife gets involved.
Right.
And she was, I had it on the TV and she was like, what on earth is going on here? And then I was like, right, this is a situation. Salford had a team and they couldn't play. And she went, this is just embarrassing. The words I've used, she said it's embarrassing for the sport. That situation, name another sport where that situation would have happened.
I can't name it. So just going back slightly. So, in terms of like who's to blame and all this kind of stuff. By the way, there is, as we speak right now, there is a meeting going on in the RFL where they're going to decide whether they impose sanctions on Paul Rowley and all this kind of stuff. We don't know the outcome right now, so let's just preface everything we're going to say with that. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. From my point of view, there's definitely a bit of foresight or a lack of foresight by the RFL by the fact that they were playing Saints. Right now, I think if they were playing somebody that's pipped to be bottom of the table this year, where this extra points aren't really going to make a difference, this could be slightly different, right? But they knew who they were playing. They should have looked at this and gone, right, we've got this carry on with Salford. could be, perhaps they didn't know that Paul Rowley was going to turn out, the reserve team in essence. But they could have perhaps predicted that and then gone, this is going to be on BBC. They're playing Saints. This is going to be a whitewash. They should have gone, look, whatever's happened in Salford, and Paul Rowley was unclear as to whether it was actually a punishment or they were just living by the rules. There should be some kind of special arrangement made where the disrepute that was created at the weekend was negated. Right? That didn't happen. And like I said, if it was another team where those extra points aren't really going to make a difference, perhaps later down in the season, then fair enough, let it run its course. Because I personally think this is a bit of RFL saying, no, Salford, you've been burying your head in the sand for weeks, if not months and seasons gone. And enough's enough. Like, we'll make an example of you, but that's all right, but not at the detriment to the game. But it weren't. It was Saints. They've let it run its course. I think everybody feels a little bit guilty. I took that from Paul Rowley's comment, the clip where he said, I think if we did this again, we'd all do things a little bit different. So that says to me that he does feel a little bit guilty about how he's throwing his tongue.
Throwing toys out of the pram. That's how it's been put, yeah. Yeah,
so anyway, we're left with this situation. I think this is going to bite us later down in the season somewhere, especially if Saints continue in the form that they've started the season with. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
It's just bad PR, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it took all the headlines of the weekend. We've stood here and we've talked about how great the Wigan League game was and the whole KR and
the draws.
Yeah, but I'll tell you now, I bet if you look at the national press, certainly certain national press within London, they won't be talking about how good Wigan v Leigh were. They'll be talking about Salford putting an academy side out against St Helens and getting beat 80-odd points on national TV. Well, it took all the shine away from what was a great opening round of Super League.
The other thing that Paul Rowley said, which sort of springs to mind and needs not addressing really, but commenting on, is the fact that it said nobody at any point has asked about the players. You know what I mean? And the effect this has on the players, the likes of Mark Sneed. Chris Hill's just gone across to Salford. He's not kicked the ball yet. You know what I mean? Callum Watkins, and all the other first team, first grade players there that are missing out. And although we've been told they've been paid in full and on time, they're not playing. They're not playing the sport. They're not fulfilling their duties of what they want to be doing. And I wonder what effect this is having.
Well, there's been some games played, haven't there, from both sides, certainly by Salford, by not naming a full-strength side against the Midlands team. They kind of knew they weren't going to be able to put out full strength because they're still going through this verification sort of process. They knew they weren't going to be able to put out full strength side against Saints. So should they name more players in that 17 against the Midlands? The other thing, you talk about sort of nobody's thought about the players, but you could talk about player safety here. They didn't even put a full strength side out. Not full strength. They didn't even have a full set of subs on the bench. So the players he did pick, he's asking them to do more because he couldn't even substitute them. Terrible, terrible game. I want to forget it. I hope it's sorted out this week. But yeah, I think some common sense has got to start prevailing at some point. This can't be the look of the sport.
I mean, and this could carry on. If you have this meeting now and they go, right, okay, we're going to impose some sanctions on you, or you've got to sell a load of your players or whatever, then this could carry on for weeks and weeks.
Nobody wins. Nobody wins, do they, in this situation? The fans don't win. The sport, it's damaging to the sport. It just needs sorting out. I know that's easy. I know that's easy to say, and I know it's a complex situation, and I know they're probably doing their best to get it sorted, but please, God, don't serve up that again.
It screams of, look, from the RFL, you've made your bed, lie in it.
Yeah,
and rules are there. Rules are there for a reason. But then it also, from the other side, like the other side of the coin, it's like you require us to field our best side to make it a competitive competition, and and we all know that we need to be making rugby league look incredible. You know what I mean? We've got to be, you know, it's like the likes of, what's the guy called, the comedian, the president of the RFL?
President of the RFL, Adam Hills.
Adam Hills. It's like Adam Hills says, you know, we've got to start screaming about it and all this kind of stuff. And then we've got this at the opening round. It's just not great.
And we're guilty for it now. We're talking about it now.
Yeah, but I'd like to think that we're not sort of going, right, okay, Paul Rowley's, you know, he's done this and that makes him a knobber, and the RFL's done this and that makes them shit. You know what I mean? We're not doing. It's like, okay, what happens now? And we've got, you know, I'd like to think we're speaking on the behalf of the perhaps neutral fan, not the Saints fan, the Leigh fan, the Salford fan. We're speaking on behalf of the general rugby league fan who's been served up a crock of shite, you know, on the BBC, you know.
Yeah.
And what happens if we lose that of broadcasting, you know, channel? You know, what happens then? What do we do then? We're relying on freaking Rugby League Outsiders to go and film in a game at the weekend.
Watch your space. I told you we're live streaming soon, mate.
No, I know, but do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's like we've got national broadcasters, and we're just creating this situation, and you know, we don't like commenting on the politics and stuff like that. But
we don't like to be negative, do we? I mean, everything we try and do on the show is be positive about this sport, but we had to talk about this. It was. Let's call it what it was. It was a national embarrassment.
Your take in the comments. You know, it's all over the internet. People got their say. It'd be really interesting to get what you take on it. But what you think the consequences are later in the season. What's gone is gone, and done is done. They're having this meeting now. They'll make their decision, and we'll sort of see it from there. But what's happening downstream? That's what I'm keen on right now. Karl, any final words for the end of this show?
Just thank you to everybody that's started to watch this show. We saw huge growth last week, over 9,000 views on one of our video, numerous new subscribers. So yeah, welcome everybody that's started following the show on the channel. And I hope you enjoy the content.
Great. So don't forget to check out our prediction video for this week where we eat a bit of humble pie. And until the next show, take care.